Hello and welcome to another amazing part of What If Garp Changed the Future? Professional Ranter wrote this amazing story. Please support them. Don't forget to like, sub, and leave a comment. Now let's dive in. Sonia looked over the letter that had just been delivered. Big Sister Hancock ensured our safety. She showed it to Sarah's, who was cuddling into her side. It says there are 4 Kuja on board. Sarah's looked at her new girlfriend, and wasn't that a beautiful sound to her? After their first night together, they discussed things in the morning. They would figure out how to communicate with each other long distance once they got back to Amazon Lily. Until then they just basked in each other's company. Do you think I should change? To help with the story? Sonia thought of Sarah's in such an outfit and felt her blood start pumping. Yes. Sarah smiled up at her. Alright, I'll go change quickly. We should be arriving at Smith 18 soon. Sarah's reluctantly got up and walked off to her room to change, but not before giving Sonia a sultry smirk. North Blue. Kong panted as he laid the finishing blow upon the pirate who had been terrorizing the North Blue. It had been a tough fight, his opponent having home turf advantage as well as his devil fruit, being in the perfect climate to make it all the more dangerous. But Kong was a former fleet admiral and had fought plenty of tougher opponents. Even in his old age he could still fight like a beast. Radio into Marine HQ. Tell them the situation in the North Blue has been neutralized and we are beginning cleanup. He ordered one of his subordinates. His shoulder ached from one of the hits his opponent had been able to get in, but he wasn't heavily injured. A few bandages and some painkillers are all he needed. Yes, sir. The Marine saluted and ran off to deliver the report. Kong leaned against his staff and looked out over the carnage. It had been a 2-day battle, the goal being to kill the head pirate. With that done, they now just needed to clean up the remnants of the crew and allies. The sunken ships dotted the sea as far as he could see. Germa always kept the pirates here in check. Do you have any idea what you caused when you killed Judge Garp? Kong asked to the empty air. Much like in the South Blue though, Kong chose to ignore several facts about the situation in the North Blue and hadn't reported them to HQ. But Morgans noticed. Smith 18. As the ship docked at Smith 18, Sarah's adjusted the cloak she had on once more. Afalandra and Rindo wore similar cloaks while Sonia only wore her usual cape. As they got off the ship, the 3 who hadn't been to Smith 18 looked at it in wonder. 18 volcanoes decorated the island, and built into each of those volcanoes was a smithing area. The volcanoes weren't overly active, and the engineers who decided to turn volcanoes into smithing areas ensured they wouldn't be while taking advantage of the heat. The city itself could be considered a military base, with the many cannons, turrets, and sniper towers that decorated the walls surrounding the island and even on many of the houses. The place had been victim to so many pirate attacks to the point the people had decided to take their defense into their own hands. Welcome to Smith 18, one of the top weapons manufacturers and inventor islands in the world. Sarah smiled at the familiar smoke coming from the volcanoes. We'll need to start with the custom orders first, then we get the basic guns bought. She walked through the gate, her halcyon in her hands and the money pouch strapped to her waist. How did they find an island with so many volcanoes? Rindo asked, although she wasn't paying too much attention as her eyes kept jumping to the guns displayed in many of the shops. From what I understand, it used to be an archipelago of volcanoes, but they leaked some lava out of a few of the volcanoes and then built up a full foundation on top of the cooled lava. Every once in a while they set up a canal to funnel lava from one of the volcanoes to the edge of the island to expand it. Sarah's kept her eye out for the custom orders shop sign while also keeping track of her 3 companions. A lot of the stores seem to just sell guns, Afalandra observed. This is just the market area for people looking to buy guns. They have a few other places where they sell different things such as transponder snails. They breed the snails and sell them off. There's also the glassware market. 1 or 2 of the smitheries focus on glassware such as cups or telescopes. I had originally looked for a scope for the halcyon until I learned about how my devil fruit improved my eyesight to extreme levels. Sarah's had loved the time she had spent at Smith 18 last time and was glad the others seemed to be enjoying it. Their primary goods though are guns and cannons. So you'll see a lot of that. Sarah's finally found the custom orders shop and lead the others to it. Entering the shop, the doorway big enough to allow Sonia in, she stepped up to the counter and rang the small bell. Hello? Suddenly a man popped up and pointed a gun at Sarah's. The others froze in shock at the sudden turn, and Sarah's refused to turn into shadows for one reason. The gun appeared to be a modified version of a shotgun, a gun that the last time she was here was in the very early stages of prototypes. Now just what are you doing with that little halcyon, little lady? The old man behind the counter asked. 'Cause I know for a fact that little number belonged to a most delightful young marine who was a breath of fresh air upon this island during her stay here while we made that gun for her. Now if you did something to her, I'm gonna have to blow your head off." He glared her down, the gun in his hand held steady. Sarah slowly lowered the hood of her cloak, revealing her face and the light blush on her cheeks. Hi Mr. Green." She gave a little wave. Mr. Green moved his gun away in shock for a moment before he let out a boisterous laugh. "Well, I'll be. Sarah's Victoria. What are you doing going all incognito like that?" He put away his gun and opened his arms wide and brought Sarah's in for a hug. "It's wonderful to see you again, lass." "It's good to see you too, Mr. Green." Sarah's returned the hug. Mr. Green, however, noticed a particular change in Sarah's. "Sarah's, who did this to you?" He pointed at her shadow arm. "And who do I have to kill?" He rested his shotgun on his shoulder. "They're already dead." "Well then, seems I owe whoever killed the bastard that did this to you one." The shopkeeper let out a loud boisterous laugh. "Now what do you need, lass? Can you make this?" Rindo slammed down a drawing of a gun. She had gotten to the end of her patience, her excitement at seeing all the different types of guns and seeing the various people who seemed to share her passion for firearms. "I once saw a pirate wielding such a gun while on a training trip and I have yearned to wield one ever since." Mr. Green wasn't as thrown off by Rindo's excitement as her companions and smiled brightly. "Always wonderful to see someone who shares a love of firearms. Let me just take a look." He quickly looks at the drawing and looks at all the details. "By chance, did the pirate who wielded this have a pair of small wings on their back?" Rindo stopped to reflect on when she first witnessed the gun that inspired her interest in firearms. "I think so. I was more focused on the gun than the one wielding it." "Ah, I don't blame you. Let me go grab something from the back and I'm sure we'll figure this all out." Mr. Green walked to the back of the store and the small group could hear some things being moved around before he came back, carrying a long tube gun with the trigger resting near the opening in the gun. "Is this what you saw?" "Yes." Rindo literally leaped over the counter and grabbed the gun from Mr. Green and began looking all over it with a wide smile. "How did you find this?" "These came from the people in the sky," Mr. Green explained, although everyone looked at him with raised eyebrows. He chuckled a bit, used to such a reaction. "There are some islands that rest upon a sea of clouds up in the sky. They got their own form of government and technology and all sorts of things. Some of them came down here recently and decided to become pirates, but they wanted some extra weapons, so they came to us. Problem for them was that the money they had was for Sky Islands and none of us knew the conversion rate, so we struck a deal. They give us the blueprints for some of their technology and weapons and we give them the weapons for free. They agreed and we've made a massive profit selling all that new tech since then. We actually had to expand the island, it became so popular just so we could make a new market area." Sarah's hummed. "I thought there were some new buildings. So you don't need to pay the price for a custom gun. You'll just need to pay the basic market price." Rindo looked at Mr. Green, then back at the gun in her hand. "Ami wesamami." She was very excited. "Is that all you needed regarding custom orders?" Mr. Green asked Sarah's, who was quickly writing down on the list of guns they needed to buy from the market. "I need a gun," Sandersonia spoke up. Mr. Green gave her a once-over. "Yeah, with how tall you are you would need a custom order. What kind are you looking for?" "Something like Sarah's Halkinen." Mr. Green chuckled. "I remember when we built that beauty. Sarah's here actually handled a small band of pirates that had been harassing us while we built the thing. Gave her a discount for that." He suddenly grew serious. "Now, I do apologize if I come off as rude, ma'am, but I'm gonna need your measurements." The three Kujas sputtered at Mr. Green's request, while Sarah slapped her forehead. "I forgot the measurements." Sandersonia looked at her girlfriend with an inquiring eye. "Due to the Halkinen's power, they require the measurements of the person placing the order so they can put in the necessary supports to keep the recoil down to a bare minimum. Sarah's here didn't need them due to her incredibly enhanced strength. I do apologize again, ma'am, for the inconvenience. Unless you have enhanced strength like Sarah's, we do need your measurements so we can put in the necessary safety features. We'd ask this of any clients of the opposite sex who wanted a Halkinen." Mr. Green pointed to a door to the side. "The room over there offers you privacy while the measurements are taken." "Sorry, Sonia," Sarah's apologized to her girlfriend. "I can help you with the measurements if you'd like." "I would like your help." Sandersonia nodded and the two entered the room. "So how long have those two been together?" Mr. Green asked the stunned Aphalandra and Rindo. "Amazon Lily. Tell me again, why are we in the jungle?" Kazan asked Alvia as he batted away another giant leaf. "Some of the legends Elder Nyan told me talk about a cave deep within the jungle. I'm hoping to find it and ensure it isn't an opening in the defenses. Alvia explained as she looked at her map of Amazon Lily. Belmir had helped her make it and she's been crossing locations off as she makes the trips. This is the 5th place I've checked. So why did you need me? Belmir was helping me, but today she's working on setting up an orange orchard on the ship. Bogard was training with his new katana. Garp was apparently teaching Hancock strategy, although it just looks like he's playing some board game with her. Tom is still working on improving the boatyard. Kuma is on guard duty for the ship today, and Guion is training with the other Kuja. You were the only one who was actually available. Kazan blinked at Alvia. Did you have to wake me up like you did though? I had tried waking you up but you didn't budge. Splashing water on you seemed like the best option after you didn't wake up. If that didn't work I was gonna ask Kuma to slap you awake. Alvia spoke bluntly. Are you angry at me? She blinked for a moment at Kazan before letting out a sigh. No, I just get like this when I'm searching for something like this cave. It sort of becomes my only focus at times, hence why I needed someone to be with me so I don't starve myself or anything. Sorry. Nah, it's alright. By the way, why does Bogard's new katana look shorter than his old one? Apparently he decided to go for a daisho combo. It's easier to unsheath both of them and use them in tandem with each other. One of the first buildings I ever uncovered actually held a daisho pair within. Alvia smiled at the memory. Kazan hummed as they continued searching through the forest. What do you think is in the cave? No clue. None of the stories spoke of what was inside, just that it was there. Alvia responded. She side-eyed Kazan for a moment. Hey, when we first docked here, Sarah said something about you being gay. Nothing wrong with that, she quickly added. But the way you two were talking. She trailed off. Oh, Kazan chuckled a bit. It's a sort of inside joke me and Sarah's have. See, on her home island gay didn't mean a man loving another man, it meant happy. She didn't know that until she told me I looked gay after I woke up from a nap. Alvia couldn't help but laugh at the image. Seriously? Yeah, I had to explain to her what it meant on most other islands. Since then though it's just become a joke between us. Kazan smiled at the laughs he and Sarah's would have. Sounds nice. Smith 18. Sarah's and Sandersonia came out of the room both blushing. Here you go, Mr. Green. Sarah's handed over the measurements and Mr. Green quickly put them with the request form he had prepared. Sorry again, ma'am, for the inconvenience. Mr. Green bowed his head to Sandersonia. Oh, where is your other rifle, Sarah's? Sarah stiffened, she hadn't forgotten about it. Sorry, I lost it when I lost my arm. She sighed. I can't really afford to get another one. Mr. Green raised an eyebrow and hummed. Let me check with Andy over in insurance. He quickly pulled out a den mushy and called someone. Andy speaking, what insurance question needs to be answered? A calm voice spoke through the snail. Andy, it's Scott. Can you check the insurance on Sarah's Victoria sniper rifle? Sarah's eyes widened and she quickly began to do the math on something. Sarah's Victoria? Why do you wait, is the lassie there with you? Andy's voice grew excited and it was reflected in the snail. Scott let out a chuckle. That she is. She apparently lost the sniper rifle when some dead fuck chopped off her arm. Well, let me go pull her up. They could hear the sound of shuffling paper through the snail. All right. The basic insurance expired 7 months ago. How long ago did you lose the rifle? Sarah's quickly became dejected. 3 months. Well, Miss Victoria, it just so happens that the insurance I'm not pulling this out of my ass policy expires in 2 days. You can get a brand new rifle free of charge. The snail had the biggest grin possible on it. Thanks, Andy. I'll go put the order in. Scott hung up and put the snail away. He still owed you for saving his little sister that one time. Although no one's gonna complain for him settling a debt. Thanks, Mr. Green. Sarah's quickly waved goodbye as she walked out the store. We should begin looking for the guns on the list tomorrow. They headed back for their ship, a good start to their stay at Smith 18. Hancock stared at the board before her, Garp sitting across from her. He put down one of his pieces and she groaned in frustration. I give up. She put the rest of her pieces on the board to signify it. You knew you wouldn't be able to win 5 moves ago. Why did you continue? Garp asked as he cleaned up the board. I saw an opening if I continued. Garp sighed. An opening I set up for an ambush. If this were an actual battle, you and all the Kuja under your command would be dead. Garp refrained from raising his voice. Hancock had only ever faced off against the Marines once, when she was merely a Kuja warrior in training. She alongside her sisters had been taken and sold into slavery when that happened. You need to think of this like a real battle, where each piece you lose is a group of your subordinates. He had been trying to drill that mindset into her since they started this part of the training. How will playing a children's board game teach me strategy? Hancock asked, exasperated. Sengoku and I would play Gungi to refine and improve our abilities at strategy. It's part of the reason we've survived so many battles. Garp shared with her. Forgive me if I don't believe that. Hancock sniped back as Garp started a new game. It may not teach you how to beat your opponents since the rules of the game won't restrain them, but it teaches you how to formulate strategies and execute them while you leave room to adapt to unexpected outcomes. Garp watched as Hancock placed her first piece down and he placed down his next piece. You already have the beginnings of that skill, I'm trying to bring it to the forefront without risking anything. Wouldn't chess or checkers prove more beneficial? Hancock questioned as she placed down her next piece. While Gungi is considered a children's game, it has far more pieces than chess or checkers and allows you to stack up pieces for different kinds of effects. There's a reason me and Seni used it to keep our strategy planning sharp. Garp placed his next piece down as he explained. The next meeting of the warlords is coming up. I got word that there are 2 new warlords joining the ranks. Hancock shared. Recent information? Yes. Hancock placed her next piece down after some deliberation. A pirate named Foxy hailing from the South Blue and has been constantly sailing all across paradise since he entered the Grand Line. He has quite a large crew and ship. That's all my Kuja were able to find on him currently. He possesses the slow fruit. He usually does a series of games when facing off against another crew and takes certain members when he wins a round. He always cheats. But he's no slouch when it comes to a fight, and there was a report he managed to take down a giant by using his fruit and some well-timed cannons, so he's a quick thinker as well. Garp placed his next piece down as he told Hancock what he knew of Foxy. While some of the higher-ranked Marines dismissed him, I could tell he had the skill to back up him being the captain of such a large crew. He never did anything too big, always preferred to have his fun and grow his crew. The other warlord hails from your home blue. Hancock placed her next piece down. Don Krieg. He has a fleet of 50 ships right now, but rumors say he plans to grow his fleet to something even bigger than that. A master strategist when it comes to naval combat. He gained a reputation not just for his fleet, but the strategies he used to obliterate enemy pirates and any Marines who came after him. Garp placed his next piece down and Hancock quickly placed hers down. No bounty hunter has been able to properly scratch him yet. His Lieutenant Jin takes most down who try their hand, and Krieg is always armed with some sort of weapon to handle any who manage to get past Jin. Before I left there was word they picked a new guy called Pearl. While before the current crisis, the Krieg pirates relied upon sheer numbers and tricks to get victory in battle. After everything that's happened, it wouldn't surprise me to know they've improved in all fields. Krieg wouldn't accept anything but the best. Hancock watched as Garp placed down his next piece and observed the board. Despite her grievances, she was at least having some fun with the game. They'd play after her physical training, so it was always a nice break for her. I have those in intelligence, a new division of the Kuja that Hancock had made a week after she began training with Garp, gathering the wanted posters and any information on the various warlords and those who work under them. It hasn't been easy for them, they're still figuring out the various organization and gathering systems. Currently, the most they can get is from the newspapers and wanted posters that come in. She placed down her next piece. It's a good start. I taught myself how to gather information on targets by doing that back when I first started out. Garp placed down his next piece. Hancock observed the board once more and let out a sigh. I give up. She collected her pieces to clear the board. She had seen a potential opening, but Garp's words from earlier rang through her head. Good, Garp smirked. You're learning? Smith 18. Sarah stretched her arm as she finished her final one-armed push-up. She looked out at the sunset, enjoying the various colors that now decorated the sky. Saris. Sandersonia spoke up from where she was practicing with her bow. Yeah. Sarah's got to her feet and did one final stretch. Rindo and Afalandra want to explore the island, Sandersonia told her. I also would like to see it. Sarah smiled at her girlfriend. It still felt like a dream to her. When she first lost her arm, despite the kind people that suddenly surrounded her, it had still been a nightmare. So many things that she was once able to do she no longer could. Then she began to talk with Sandersonia as the ship sailed towards Amazon Lily. Now they were dating and she could make a prosthetic arm with her devil fruit so she could do everything she had once thought forever lost to her. Things weren't perfect, but they were certainly better than when she first started out with the Starry crew. I know a good bar that has some of the best food. Tomorrow we can see more of the island when we get the guns, but you can always get the best taste of a place from their food. A saying that Garp had, and one that she strongly believed in. Saras, Rindo, and Afalandra donned their cloaks and the four set out into the streets of the island. They quickly made their way through the markets, stopping a few times so Rindo could admire the various guns, and made their way into the restaurant district. The three newcomers were captivated by the various lights that decorated the district, and the various aromas of captivating foods had them almost drooling. Saris herself was feeling much the same. The restaurant district of Smith 18 in her opinion showed what the island was truly like. People feasting and talking while eating and drinking. But she noticed a difference between how it was now and how it was when she saw it when she got her Halkonen. The people, the atmosphere felt subdued. As though something was missing. Like they lost something important. What happened? They had so much life in them the last 2 times I was here. The first time had been when she got her Halkonen, the second time was when she got the normal sniper rifle. I can ask around later. Soon they found the bar, the flowing barrel, and entered. While the others didn't notice, Saris could feel the subdued atmosphere much like outside. The man behind the bar looked up from the glass he was filling up. We got a booth over there in the corner that should be able to fit you all. He pointed as he handed the beer to one of the customers at the bar. Sitting at the booth, Saris pulled her hood down as a waiter came up. Hello, welcome to the Flowing Barrel. The food we have today is on the menus. The waiter handed them the menus. All drinks are listed above the bar over there. If you want something alcoholic, just ask. Can I start y'all with anything? Beer for me, Afalandra said. Same here, Rindo requested. Water for now, Sandersonia nodded. Water for me as well, Saris looked at the waiter. He was tense, not because he was talking to strangers or because he was struggling with work, but because of something else. The other waiters and the bartender acted the same. Something had them all on edge, waiting for the other shoe to drop. The waiter nodded at their requests and went to collect the drinks. Don't drink too much, we need to get up early tomorrow so we can get everything. They won't let you handle the guns if you're drunk or hungover here, safety precaution. Saris warned the two. This is a nice place, Afalandra said as she looked at the bar. This whole island is awesome. Rindo said excitedly, we should take notes on their defenses for Amazon Lily. That would only work if we got even more guns than we can currently afford and even buy some cannons to stay on the island. Saris didn't refute that Rindo's idea had merit, just that they currently couldn't do it. But the designs could work well for outposts. Thoughts are still in the works, Sandersonia said. She was pleasantly surprised that no one gave her any looks for her hiss. Do they do consultations? Not currently. The waiter said as they returned with their drinks. We're currently not allowed to leave the island by order of the Marines and world government. He handed the drinks out. Have you figured out what you would like to order? Saris watched as the others placed their orders, and when the waiter got to her she looked at the menu for the first time since she sat down. A quick look and she saw what she wanted. I'll take 2 steaks, medium rare, with some mashed potatoes please. The waiter wrote down her order and walked off. Why would they be banned from leaving the island? There was that pirate that tried to take over not too long ago. Empress Hancock had us preparing defenses in case they tried to attack, but it never happened. They were recently defeated, but there was little known about them to the public. We don't even know the identity of the leader. Afalandra shared. Hancock had her working in the intelligence division when she wasn't training. She's had us looking into it recently, hence why she sent me to ensure there weren't any threats to Amazon Lily. Most likely some of the followers are on the island and they are trying to keep them from escaping. I remember Sister talking about us potentially helping the Marinus with it. They never requested our aid. Sandersonia took a sip of her water. They never told us much about the situation despite Sister SSS requests for information. Then they either couldn't get the information to her, they had already sent someone to handle the situation, or they're hiding something. Sarah's downed a quarter of her water. My bet's on the last 2. Despite the multiple problems they have, the Marines and world government have one of the best information networks there is. She tapped her fingers against the table and thought, whatever they were hiding must be bad for them. They would risk it blowing up in their faces if the public learned the truth rather than just telling them outright. A strategy that has worked against them in the past, especially recently. The others knew Sarah's was referring to the auction house at Sabaody Archipelago. The fallout when the public learned about it had been massive, especially when the Celestial Dragon Protection Protocol was activated and several trade routes were lost to pirates. What could they be trying to hide? Rindo tilted her head in confusion. It has to be something that could cause the world government to have some kingdoms leave them. I heard that a few almost did when the auction house was revealed to the public. The only reason they didn't is because they didn't have any way to defend themselves without the aid of the Marines and none of their trade routes were secure. Alvia kept up with the news and she and Sarah's would sometimes talk about it. Iwai barkeep. Serve us some sake. A Marine kicked the door open and stomped in with some other Marines, catching the attention of everyone in the bar. Sarah's immediately pulled her hood down, not wanting to risk them potentially recognizing her. We currently don't have any sake. We are trying to get a new shipment right now. Is there anything else you'd like to drink? The barkeep avoided looking them in the eyes as he handed a glass of beer to a customer. Do you know who we are? We're your protectors, and you can't serve us some sake? The Marine leaned forward slightly as he looked at the barkeep while the customers at the bar tensed up. We ran out of sake 5 days ago. We've been trying to get more, but we haven't had any luck. The barkeep kept a level voice. Oh, that's a shame. The Marine then unsheathed their sword and broke the glasses resting on the bar top. The customers had been able to fall to the floor, but the barkeep was cut across their chest and collapsed to the ground. Next time have some fucking sake ready for us. The Marines laughed as one of the waiters got the bartender out of the room so they could be treated. The Marines looked around the restaurant until one of them saw the group of 4 sitting in one of the booths. Well, what are beauties like you fine ladies doing in a place like this? He walked up and leaned on the table, raising an eyebrow as he ogled the only one of them not wearing a cloak. I could show you a good time if you want. The Marine reached forward to stroke Sandersonia's arm only for it to be grabbed by Sarah's. The Marine looked at her only to stare into eyes the color of blood. They were like swirling pools that promised only pain and suffering. Don't even think about touching her. Sarah's growled out. The Marine shook his head and ripped his arm away. And what authority do you have? A warlord. Sandersonia produced the letter of permission Hancock had gotten for them and presented it to the Marine. His colleagues, who were all flirting with people that clearly did not want the attention, looked over at their booth. Boa Hancock? Man, what I wouldn't do to have some fun with her. The Marine pervertedly licked his lips. And you're her sister? Mind putting in a good word to help me get a piece of that ass? Sandersonia glared at the Marine. The only reason she didn't attack was the comforting squeeze that Sarah's gave her arm. Ask that again and you will learn what it means to cross as a warlord. The Marine chuckled, not at all dissuaded. Whatever slut. Sarah's wished she had brought her Halkinen, but they weren't allowed in restaurants without a permit. I'm sure I could get a transfer to be one of her handlers. I could handle all sorts of things with her. The creepy Marine left with the others after tossing the letter aside. Maybe I could make her my personal bitch. Sarah's could see Sandersonia shaking at the Marine's words. Let's get back to the ship, we can come here some other day. She got up and paid for the drinks and took the food to go. Here's a little extra. She pushed some belly into the waiter's hands. It should help with the medical costs. She had used a shadow tendril to steal some of the Marine's money while he was busy being a creep. A few hours later, did you see the rack on the big one? The group of Marines laughed at their comrade's question. Kinda hard to miss with how she was practically flaunting it. The group laughed as they went into the Marine HQ of the island. Vice Admiral? No answer. Is he working on his flamethrowers? Maybe. This late at night? He's probably just asleep. The Marines headed for their bunks, where the other Marines were already asleep. Where's the night shift? One of them asked as they opened the door to the bunks, only to get their answer. All of the Marines were dead, their throats slit, the window at the back broken. Where have you been? Vice Admiral Draw demanded as he stomped into the building, flamethrowers at the ready. We've got someone picking us off. They snuck in earlier, killed everyone, and then jumped out the window. What? Before Draw could respond, a beast of shadows grabbed him. He whirled around and tried to repel it with his flames, but it did nothing. It ripped his arms off and then cut his head off. He didn't have a chance to even scream. As the body fell, all the Marines could see were blood-red eyes. In the few short hours I have observed you, all of you have proven to be scum. Try and run, it won't do you any good. Sarah's panted slightly as she walked the streets of Smith 18, working her way through alleyways and rooftops to get back to the ship. She was dressed in her normal clothes, not taking the risk of witnesses pointing fingers at the Kuja. Seeing how the group of Marines at the bar acted and the waiter's words set a fear in her that she had to investigate. Only to find it true. Every Marine on this island abused their power in some way, even the Vice Admiral that lead them all. There was more to what was happening, she was certain of it. Sarah's? She stalled as someone called her name. Looking behind, she saw Mr. Green peering out of one of the houses. What are you doing out so late at night? Come on, little lassie, get in before any Marine spots ya. He quickly ushered her into his home, not commenting on the splatters of blood that decorated her clothes. Sorry, Mr. Green, I don't mean to cause any trouble. Sarah took a seat as everything caught up to her. She had just killed all of the Marines on the island in a few short hours. Anyone else would be winded, but she only had lost her breath for a few moments. although I don't think the Marines will be any trouble. Scott looked at Sarah's and quickly connected the dots. He grimaced. Thanks, none of them escaped? Sarah's was a bit thrown off by the question. No. I was taught when on the hunt for scum like them to let none of them escape. I've managed to only fail that training once. She lifted her shadow arm in explanation. What happened with that? If it ain't too rude to ask. Sarah's grimaced herself. The Marine crew I was part of had been assigned to escort one of the celestial dragons, and unfortunately I caught her attention. She demanded I be made her slave, and I of course refused. My captain cut off my arm as punishment at the behest of the bitch. He didn't even hesitate. Scott shook his head in disgust as he brought Sarah some robes. Let's get those clothes clean. There's a bathroom over there you can change in. Thank you. Sarah's grabbed the robe and quickly went to the bathroom. A quick change and Scott had chucked the clothes into the washer with some blood remover. What's with the increase in Marines? There's nearly 10 times more than there should be here, even with the expansions. Scott rubbed the back of his neck as he considered what to say. Before I begin explaining, who are you sailing with right now? Your new captain might want to know. You've probably seen his wanted poster, Garp the End. Sarah's and the rest of the crew had a laugh when they saw his new epithet when the wanted posters showed up. Scott smirked. Well then, that makes this easier. He went to a painting on the wall and took it off. Behind it was a safe that he opened, where he then lifted up the false bottom with a hidden lever. He grabbed a letter out from it and reset everything. He handed it to Sarah's as he returned to his seat. Tyrannis wanted that letter to get to Garp when he realized the rebellion was going to fail. Rebellion? Scott crossed his arms as he remembered everything that had happened recently. The South Blue has the highest rate of corruption among the Marines out of all the seas. It's not exactly a well-known fact. They do the best they can to keep people from learning that fact, even killing people. Tyrannis was just a kid. He would have been 17 by now. His parents had found some Marines taking bribes and gone to report it, bless their souls, and were immediately executed on bullshit charges. Kid was looking through his home, cleaning things up when he found what was meant to be his birthday present. He loved devil fruits, was absolutely fascinated by them, and his parents had saved up to buy him one. He saw a chance and ate the thing and immediately went on a warpath against the Marines. Scott sighed. People started flocking to him, seeing a chance to be free from the Marines. He even supplied us with everything we needed, so we were able to advance our research by decades thanks to him. He tried to reach out to Marine headquarters, get in contact with someone who could actually do something about the corruption, but someone blocked them. We still don't know who, but at some point, a Marine admiral showed up and began going after everyone that had surrounded him. He saw what was coming, sent one letter to Big News Morgans about what was going on here, and gave me that letter to try and get it to Garp. Sarah's was horrified to learn what had happened here. She looked down at the letter in her hand. Why did he want to contact Captain? Don't know, I never opened the letter, but he might have hoped Garp could do something. The reason for the increased Marine presence is because we supplied weapons and tools to Tyranni's movement. Things have certainly gotten worse for us, the Marines getting even bigger egos than before. Sarah's looked down at the letter and processed what she had learned. How can I help them? Amazon Lily. Kazan sighed as he looked over the map. When he wasn't doing other tasks on the island or guarding the ship, he'd been working on figuring out where Hancock can begin to gain territories as an emperor. Unfortunately, the islands nearby were all loyal to the world government, and his talks with the intelligence division of the Revolutionary Army hadn't yielded anything. While there were some on the islands that spoke out against the world government, the vast majority stood with them in the Marines. They believed so greatly in the defense that the Marines provided they wouldn't even think to accept the protection of an emperor. Damn it. Something on your mind? Alvia asked as she walked in with 2 cups of tea. It had become a bit of a tradition for the two of them to share a drink while looking over maps. Just trying to figure out territories for Hancock. I've been coordinating with some people in the army, but none of the info has been good. How's it going with your cave search? Kazan accepted the cup and took a sip. I tried a few more times today, no luck yet. But I'm getting close, I can feel it in my bones. Alvia got a determined glint in her eyes. Kazan chuckled at the sight. Good to know. Something occurred to him and he quickly got up to grab another map. Could you answer a history question for me? Alvia tilted her head. Sure, what do you want to know? Has there ever been a case of an emperor taking parts of a blue as their territory? Alvia thought over the question. No, I don't think so. It's entirely possible it happened at some point, but that would be before the Void Century and any history before it was locked away somewhere by order of the world government. So an emperor hasn't taken parts of a blue as territory since the Void Century, that much I know. Kazan couldn't fight his grin as he overlaid the map of the Paradise half of the Grand Line with the map of the South Blue. directly over the comm belt. We've already figured out locations for outposts for Hancock, but Amazon Lily is in a unique situation of residing on the comm belt between the South Blue and Paradise. We'll need to talk to Sarah's when she gets back, but I think I just figured out where Hancock can begin gathering territories. Kazan looked at the map of the South Blue, the basis of a plan already forming in his head. Ace. Garp awoke with a start, for a few moments thinking he was back at Marine HQ before he remembered. He sat on the side of his bed and held his head, Luffy's screams for his brother echoing in his ears. This had become a weekly occurrence since he had the first nightmare, seeing everything that happened to Luffy, what Sakazuki did to Luffy. And without fail, every time he heard the echoes, all he wanted to do was kill Sakazuki. Fuck, he ran his fingers through his hair. I'm gonna need to cut it soon, he absently thought as he got up. He had decided to take the day off from training yesterday, although that didn't mean Hancock and the Kuja were given a break. He had set them on a regiment monitored by Bogard. I'll need to talk with him soon. With everything going on, if he'll still want to keep it a secret from the world. Garp thought as he walked to the kitchen only to be welcomed with a surprise. Lami was sitting at one of the tables enjoying some soup. Sup. Garp blinked for a moment, surprised she was up and walking about so soon. Hey. Lami took a loud slurp from her soup, not breaking eye contact with Garp. I'm joining your crew. What? Garp checked his ears to make sure he heard her right. I said I'm joining your crew. Have you started to lose hearing, Gramps? Lami rolled her eyes. No, Garp was blunt in his refusal. You are a child, you're barely a teenager. You're free from the Amber Lead, you can do whatever you want except join my crew. I refuse your refusal, Lami smiled smugly at Garp. I'm not staying on with the Kuja, they're a bit much. I can't go back to the North Blue given I've pissed off plenty of people on every island there. Actually, I can't go to any of the Blues, I've pissed off someone important in each of them. She said it as though she were proud of the fact. Garp pinched the bridge of his nose. How did you manage to piss off someone in every single Blue? They were either jerks or I just didn't like them. Besides, do you know how hard it is to find a medicinal devil fruit? Lami ate a spoonful of soup. Garp was reminded of his grandchildren with how the conversation was going. I'm certain there's an island in the Grand Line you could call home. Nah, I'll just piss someone off there and need to bolt. Lami just shrugged before picking up her bowl of soup and downing the rest. Why do you want to keep being a criminal? You're no longer sick, you can do anything you want. Garp was reminded of his many arguments with Ace about becoming a pirate. He had no doubt that if he hadn't left the Marines he would be having the same arguments with Luffy. Lami glared at Garp for a second before her gaze softened. Because you're doing everything you can to fuck over the world government. When Garp didn't immediately respond she continued, they did nothing to help Flevance when the Amber Lead syndrome was discovered. Instead, they helped the royal family escape and let the other islands think it was contagious and quarantined us before firebombing the entire island. Lami gripped the table tight and grit her teeth. My dad rushed through an entire hospital while sick himself just to get me to safety as everything burned. He threw me out when he saw the ceiling collapsing. I had to crawl myself to safety through the burning ruins of my home. My entire family is dead because the world government refused to help us. Anyone who managed to get out, they're either dead or in hiding, but I'm done running. Lami stood up on the table. I am going to fuck over the world government. I will destroy everything for what they did to Flevance. To my family. And nothing is going to stop me. Garp looked at Lami understandingly. He sighed, knowing he wasn't going to win this argument. Fine, Lami perked up, but there will be rules. Lami clearly wasn't happy about that stipulation. Fine, name them, but she could deal with it. First, something to conceal your identity if you ever decide to retire from this. Starting out young you'll get plenty of chances to leave. I'm just going to ensure it can be as peaceful as possible. I'll figure something out, Lami crossed her arms. Second, you follow my orders always when in battle. Outside of that, I don't care too much so long as you don't purposely put yourself in danger. But in battle, you will be working with the rest of the crew to ensure everyone gets out alive while our enemies fall. Lami grinned, no complaints for that. Finally, don't insult anyone on the crew or any of our allies like you did when we first met. I don't care if you insult our enemies, hell that will just anger them and give us an advantage. But I won't accept insults to my friends and allies. Got it? Garp raised an eyebrow. Crystal. Garp sighed again, already knowing the rest of the crew were going to be on his ass for this. What do you know about being a doctor? Lami tilted her head. My dad was a doctor for Flevance, my big brother was studying to become one. I hadn't really figured out what I wanted to be but I picked up a few things. We got plenty of books here, you're going to be learning all you can. With your devil fruit, it's best to have you at least as the ship's nurse. I'll teach you what I know about bandaging and removing things from wounds. Garp picked Lami up and put her on his shoulder. We're also gonna get you a proper weapon, not that rusty naginata you were using. Can it still be a naginata? Lami looked away blushing. Garp cracked a smile as he walked them to the infirmary. You chose it because it looked like a scalpel, didn't you? He let out a bellowing laugh when Lami's blush deepened. Shut up. She hit him on the head, but with her muscle mass, it equated to light baps. It only served to make Garp laugh harder. You're gonna fit right in. Sarah's mind was abuzz after last night's events, especially what Mr. Green had told her. She cuddled into Sandersonia's side, making it back after her clothes were cleaned, although she wasn't able to sleep. It still hurt, knowing just how far gone the Marines and the world government were. The people she had looked up to and worked alongside, how many of them had been corrupt? Abused their positions? Taken bribes? Murdered innocent civilians to avoid the consequences? Framed people for their own crimes? How many weren't who they said they were? The questions swirled through her mind, leaving her thoughts such a mess to the point she didn't notice Sandersonia waking up until she cupped her cheek. Sonia? Are you okay? Sandersonia could easily see that something was stressing Sarah's out. You didn't return until after midnight last night. Sarah sat up and looked at the wall. I didn't mean to wake you, sorry. I handled a few things last night and ran into Mr. Green after I was done. We talked and I got a new perspective on some things. Sarah's got up from the bed. You ever hear of someone named Tyrannis? It feels familiar, but everything lately has been so chaotic I can't keep track of it all. Sandersonia sat on the edge of the bed. Were they someone important? Sarah's looked at her girlfriend. I think so. I learned about him last night, but I still don't fully understand it all. Sarah's leaned forward until her head was buried in Sandersonia's cleavage. I still don't understand why my old captain betrayed me, or why I didn't notice the corruption within the Marines. How could I be so blind? Sandersonia didn't know how to answer that question. She couldn't remember a time when she didn't see at least some of the flaws of the world government and the Marines. She had been enslaved because of them, how could she not see? But Sarah's? Pirates had murdered her parents, almost killed her, and tormented her home island for weeks. It was the Marines who stopped them, the Marines who had them tried and judged for their crimes, the Marines who had the leaders and lieutenants executed for what they did while the crews were thrown into impel down. Sometimes even evil things can do good. That was all she could come up with. It spoke true, but it didn't feel like it would be enough for Sarah's. It didn't feel like there was anything she could say that could explain to Sarah's how she didn't notice it. Sengoku's office. Sengoku breathed a heavy sigh as he waited for his next meeting. He felt tired and worn out, even feeling aimless at times. Rosinante had been officially declared dead, his blood found in the same area as the body of Marine Captain and head of G5 Virgo. With him not reappearing since, and more than the allotted time for a Marine to be declared MIA and then KIA despite Sengoku's efforts to extend it. He didn't want to face the reality that his son may truly be dead. A child had been discovered on Minion Island, the son of the former Marine turned pirate Diaz Barrels, Dory Barrels. Given the crisis they were in, many had suggested executing Dory, his only crime being that he shared blood with Diaz, as a show that the Marines were still the law. So Sengoku had done something he knew he might never have done if he hadn't given up on the Marines. He faked the child's death and sent him to the one place he felt he would be safe, a place Garp had told him had been kind to him when he lived on the streets. Fusha village within the Goa kingdom, a place that didn't ask where people came from. He had sent him with a few Marines who wanted to leave but couldn't because they served under a kainu. Thankfully a sunk ship in Sea King territory does wonders for faking someone's death. He told them not to contact him under no circumstances or else someone would find out they were alive and they would be hunted down. I wish I could talk with you, Garp, about anything. I don't care, I just need something to take my mind off of everything going on. Sengoku wished he could retire then and there. But he wasn't even allowed some time to mourn his son. A knock at his door knocked him from his thoughts. Fleet Admiral Sengoku? Hina has arrived and Smoker will be here soon. Rear Admiral Hina stepped into his office. He had to handle some pirates that he came across. That's all right. While we wait for him, I do have an assignment for you that you can get to once you wrap up the rest of your work. Hina stood at attention. You will be staying at Fishman Island for the foreseeable future. While Dressrosa has been useful in stopping pirates from going further into the New World, the Five Elders want extra defenses that don't rely on a warlord. King Neptune has agreed to this, and it has been decided that given your track record with handling pirates, you are the right Marine for the job. Sengoku rubbed his forehead. Just between the two of us, I believe this to be a bad idea. You shouldn't be tied to a single kingdom during this crisis, but these orders come directly from the 5 elders, so I can't do anything about it. Just do what you can." It was clear Hina had something to say. "Anything you have to say regarding these new orders will be off the record, no one will know about it." Hina believes this to be an idiotic plan. Hina has been working to regain the trade routes lost during the Sabaody incident. To be taken from that would prove detrimental for the many kingdoms relying on Hina's efforts to return to them their trade routes. Hina aired her complaints immediately once Sengoku gave her the okay. Sengoku let out another sigh, something he was finding himself doing a lot as of late. "I said much the same to the 5 elders, but they were firm in their decision and I can't cancel, delay, or transfer the order to someone else. I'm sorry, but there's nothing that I can do." Could Hina simply not delegate one of her subordinates to defend Fishman Island? The orders specifically ask for you, not someone from your fleet. Hina could do patrols around the area of Fishman Island weekly while working on securing trade routes. The orders say you must be on Fishman Island. Hina scowled. This could very well lead to kingdoms leaving the world government. Is there nothing to convince them that moving Hina away from where she is needed is a bad idea? She was begging him for an answer, anything but this. Hina knew what would happen if she wasn't allowed to continue what she had been doing. Trade routes would be lost again to pirates and the kingdoms would draw ever closer to seceding from the world government. But Sengoku didn't have an answer to Hina's plea. "The orders can't be undone, I've tried." That was all he could say. He didn't have any way to assure her or a loophole she could abuse so she could continue doing what she was doing. The orders were far too specific and ironclad. Hina felt another chip appear in her loyalty to the Marines and the world government at those words. Garp abandoning the Marines in favor of forcing change without bureaucracy holding him back, the reveal that there was still a place for legal slavery that anyone from world nobles to pirates could buy from, the Sabaody incident, and now this. She was beginning to see things she wished she could unsee, things that forced her to see why Garp went down the path he was now walking. Standing up straight once more and taking in a deep breath, Hina cooled her expression. Hina understands, and will perform her duties. The words felt like acid on her tongue. She didn't want to say them, but she had no choice. A knock thankfully interrupted their thoughts. "Sorry I'm late again. A new pirate crew had just entered the East Blue when I boarded. They were waving the Barrels pirate flag and I didn't want them to gain a foothold in it." In the old timeline, the Barrels pirates would be wiped out by Doflamingo and the Marines on Minion Island. In the new timeline, Doflamingo had been too busy handling the aftermath of some idiot pirates trying to claim Dressrosa for themselves before he could that he wasn't able to go to Minion Island himself. Diaz Barrels was still dead, but he had been killed by Green Bull long after the Minion Island incident, while the rest of his crew managed to escape and have been causing no shortage of trouble for the world government. "It's fine, Kizaru is hunting down their new captain as we speak and Tsuru is planning on sending Warlord Jinbei to handle their other ships," Sengoku assured him. Hina and her crew could handle them just fine if the 5 elders would let us, Hina thought bitterly. "Understood," Smoker nodded. "With the recent uptick of pirate fleets forming, I've had my hands full stopping pirate crews from joining up with fleets. The problem is I don't have enough Marines to handle all pirates who come, so I've been forced to ignore the ones who don't cause any trouble to conserve manpower." He spoke bitterly about that decision. "Well, then this next part will be good news to you," Sengoku said, although he didn't think Hina would think the same for herself. "Rear Admiral Hina, Commodore Smoker, for your service to the Marines and your work to ease the severity of this crisis. Then why are the 5 elders stopping Hina from doing her work? It has been decided that the both of you will be promoted to the rank of Admiral." Smoker gaped while Hina gritted her teeth. "They promote me while taking me away from why I was promoted? What are they thinking?" "Thank you, sir." Smoker saluted. "This feels bittersweet. I wish Garp could have been here for this." Garp was Smoker's idol, the model he used for how to be a Marine, so to be promoted in the midst of a crisis that Garp had started didn't feel as great as he dreamed it would have felt. Which brings me to my next point. I've already gone over this with the other admirals at the behest of the 5 elders, and since you two now hold that rank, I'll share it with you. Sengoku didn't miss the way Hina was scowling since he had announced her promotion. As you may know, when a Marine captures or kills someone with a bounty, they are given a quarter of that person's bounty. The money can be reserved until the Marine retires, when it is then all given to them, or they may request the money to be pulled and given to them. Garp held the record among the Marines for most completed bounties, with a total before his initial disappearance being more than 7 billion. Hina and Smoker's eyes widened in shock at the number, all of various prices from as low as 50 belly to as high as 1 billion. It didn't matter to him. He would also take the money he had garnered from those bounties out every month after becoming vice admiral without fail. A week before he disappeared, he had taken out the money he had accrued and hadn't completed any other bounties before he left. No one knows where the money is. If he invested it or gave it to someone, we don't know. The 5 elders want the money found, however, before Garp can retrieve it and use it for himself. They have asked that all admiral be made aware of this fortune and to keep an ear out for any news of its location. How much money could be there that the 5 elders want us to retrieve it instead of focusing on capturing pirates and resolving this crisis? Smoker asked the obvious question. 144,796,725,807 belly. A little over 5 times Garp's current bounty, 26,958,743,160 belly. Sengoku had personally requested accounting to find out just how much money Garp had collected from his bounties. Hina and Smoker gaped at the sheer amount. With that kind of money, Garp easily had the fortune of a newly made world noble and could buy his own kingdom with it and still have plenty to spare. We don't know why he never used it, only Garp knows that, but if this fortune enters circulation, whoever possesses it will have a tremendous amount of power. It could even help make a pirate an emperor of the sea. Smith 18. Saris pulled the cloak tighter around herself as they walked through the market. After her talk with Sonia, they had gone about their day on the ship as normal. Afalandra and Rindo didn't feel comfortable going to one of the restaurants again after what happened last night, and Saris couldn't blame them. Even if the Marines were dead, it didn't erase what they had said and done. So they ate from the food storage and then set out for the market. They had first made a stop at the bank to exchange all their gold for belly, and then it was off from there. We'll collect the flintlocks first, then we'll go for Rindo's sky bazooka. Rindo had squealed in joy upon finally learning the name of the gun of her dreams, and then we'll go check in with Mr. Green about Sonia's rifle, as well as upgrades to my Halkinen. The gun was once more slung over her shoulder, the weight a small comfort for Sarah's as her mind still struggled with the morning's question. What do we do with any leftover money? Afalandra asked. Captain did give me a list for extra things if we had the money to spare. We'll check it out once we make all our purchases, Sarah's answered. The first shop came up and Sarah stepped to the counter. Before she could say anything, a graying woman spoke up. Miss Victoria, what do you need? She spoke matter-of-factly, but she had a calculating eye on Sonia. Sarah's was a bit caught off guard. She hadn't met this woman when she had last been to Smith 18, so she didn't know how she knew her name or what she looked like. I need 3 left-handed pistols, 12 right-handed pistols, and 1 ambidextrous pistol. Ambidextrous pistols were a more recent invention given all the funding that the Smiths got recently, but they were still refining the manufacturing process, so the guns cost a bit more than the others. Sarah's had found out about them recently from a weapons catalog that Mr. Green had at his house that she read while her clothes dried last night. Do you know where we can get a sky bazooka? I'll go get you those guns. As for the sky bazooka, go down the street until you hit the wall of buildings, then take a left and a store selling them should be right there. The lady nodded her head and headed in back to start gathering the guns. Sarah's began to get the money out that they needed to pay for it. Rindo, on the other hand, had discovered a free weapons catalog and was devouring all the information it was giving her. Never have I known such joy as learning that such a gun as the shotgun exists. I must convince Empress Hancock to take Smith 18 as one of her territories. Then I could get them all the funding they need to advance weapons into the further future. And I could test them out. Afalandra stared at Rindo, who was literally drooling over the weapons catalog. Nope, not dealing with that. She immediately looked away. The lady came back with a small crate. All 16 requested pistols are in here. She handed it over to Sarah's and took half of the money on the counter. Before Sarah's could say anything, the lady handed the money she had picked up back to Sarah's. We're having a sale today on everything. I just haven't had the chance to put the sign up just yet. Oh, and please inform your big friend over there that the customs shop will be closed for the day. Scott is talking with the other heads of the island about the murder of all the Marines here. The woman spit on the ground. I hope those bastards rot in hell. Oh, thank you for letting us know. But how did you know that Sonia had a custom order? Sarah's tilted her head. Scott called me before he headed out for the meeting. I'm currently the only shop that sells ambidextrous pistols. Sarah's nodded and picked up the crate with ease. Thank you again. She bowed her head and headed off in the direction the lady had pointed out. All the Marines of the island are dead? Afalandra asked in shock. The Kuja knew Sarah's had gone after the Marines who had accosted the restaurant they went to last night, but how had she been able to get all of the Marines on the island in one night? They all abused the power they had as officers of the law. I wasn't going to stand around and let them hurt the people of this island. Sarah's answered one of Afalandra's questions, but the question of how remained unanswered. "Hey Saris," Rindo fell in stride with her and showed her one of the pages of the catalog. "Says here that they are working on a cannon that can be fired like a gun. How do they go about researching everything?" "Well, first they have to secure funding for that research." Saris held up one finger. "So they draw up the initial budget and then make a deal with one of the shops that they'll provide extra money in case they go over the initial budget. They don't usually go over it, but they have at times. The deal is the shop gets to exclusively sell the thing that the researchers are trying to create for a year before other shops can sell it. However, the deal is only upheld if the researchers need the extra money." Saris held up another finger. "The second way they are able to research new weapons is through custom orders. Since those always lead to guns unique to the individual, it allows them to research all sorts of things. My Halkonen was a result of them researching a way to create a handheld gun that could pierce large holes in ships with the ammo. What you're looking at there is them trying to find a way to make a less powerful version of the Halkonen that they can sell on the market." Rindo tilted her head. "Why a less powerful version?" "Because the recoil on this thing could tear a normal person's arm off," Sarah said, scaring Rindo. "Although that's mostly because they didn't need to put safety features into it since I didn't need it." Sarah's let out a laugh. Sonia caught herself blushing at Sarah's laugh. It sounded so happy. "I hope I can make her happy." They quickly hit the wall of buildings the lady had mentioned and took a left. Rindo's eyes turned to stars upon seeing the store selling sky bazookas and rushed towards it. "Come to Mama." Sarah's laughed again seeing Rindo so excited and jogged after her. "Sorry sir, she's been waiting to get this gun for a while so she's pretty excited." She apologized to the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper let out a boisterous laugh. "Ah, it's fine," he waved it off. "We're actually having a sale today, 25% off," he pointed to the sign. "Huh, we just came from another shop having a sale. Is there some sort of celebration going on?" Sarah's looked at the other shops and saw similar signs in their windows and shelves. "Just celebrating those dirty Marines getting what's they deserve." The shopkeeper spit on the ground. Sarah's could see similar expressions from the other people nearby. They all had a reason to hate the Marines. "How did I miss this last time I was here? Was it always like this or have things changed?" Sarah's handed over the necessary amount of money to the shopkeeper. "This should be enough, right?" "Yup, here you go little lady." The shopkeeper handed Rindo a sky bazooka. "Here's a maintenance manual for it as well." Rindo had already put the gun over her shoulder and held it close to her side as she began to pore over the manual. "It doesn't need ammo?" "Fascinating." She walked away with the others, Sarah's waving goodbye to the shopkeeper. Sengoku's office. "Sen?" Tsuru walked into Sengoku's office and saw him with his head resting on his desk. "I'm guessing Hina didn't take the new orders well?" Sengoku sat back up with a groan. "No, she did not. Or the new promotion for that matter." He rubbed at his eyes. She and Smoker also weren't too happy about being asked to waste resources looking for Garp's fortune. "I tried to tell the 5 elders that wasting resources looking for it would push more Marines away, but they just wouldn't listen. I was lucky to just restrict the order to the admirals and a select few others." Despite his quickly dwindling faith in the Marines and his actions going directly against them, Sengoku still held out hope that he could influence something good for the organization out of this crisis. But the 5 elders were stomping those hopes out. Kujaku is having similar reactions to the order she's been given recently. Tsuru spoke of her granddaughter. She's been growing increasingly frustrated that she's been relegated to whipping people and forcing them to tell her all that they know instead of doing what she was doing before the crisis. Her career has been driven to a complete halt because of how they are treating her like a guard of Impel Down instead of a Marine, with how much time they've forced her to spend there questioning all the old prisoners. With Kujaku's devil fruit powers, the 5 elders had decided she should question all of the prisoners Garp put away in Impel Down, those that were still alive at least. The issue was the questions were about it. They had worked with Garp in the past, and if they knew where he or his fortune was. They had gotten it into their heads that Garp had been corrupt from the get-go and had worked with the pirates he arrested until they were no longer of use to him. They had even released all the corrupt Marines that he had arrested, despite Sengoku's objections. She only finished training a month before Garp disappeared, and already she has been forced to abandon her dreams of becoming an admiral. Tsuru glared at the ground and gripped her arm. "I'm hoping to convince her to leave at some point." "At this point, it would be better for her to fake her death," Sengoku admitted. "The 5 elders are considering pulling all former Marines who left or are retired back into active duty who didn't already volunteer to return. Vegapunk has already yelled at them multiple times to stop rushing him if they want his inventions to actually work." Sengoku got out a bottle and 2 glasses and poured whiskey into both. He handed one glass to Tsuru and took the other for himself, leaving the 3rd glass alone in the drawer. "He's apparently working on some project called Pacifistus," He's almost done with it, he's just figuring out how they'll look. I'm hoping that'll calm the elders down enough to actually talk some reason about their recent orders. Tsuru huffed and downed part of the whiskey, like that'll happen with those old fucks. Kuma sat in the library of the ship reading, on guard duty for the ship until the afternoon. Garp said we will be able to stop with guard duty soon, hopefully our trust isn't broken. Kuma thought to himself. He was glad that he had properly separated himself from his kingdom before being officially recognized on the crew. He might not have had the chance if he and Dragon had gone along with the initial plan before Garp made headlines. They had planned to make Kuma a warlord for the world government, allowing them connections to people and classified information they could use. But Kuma would have had to make himself into a monster that the world government would want under their thumb. They had been putting the finishing touches on that plan when the news broke that Garp had killed a celestial dragon, witnessed by Dragon himself even. Plans were quickly scrapped and changed, much to Kuma's relief. A ringing came from the transponder snail on the table next to Kuma. He picked it up and answered, but before he could say anything someone else yelled out, "Lord Bartholomew, they know about Princess Bonnie." Kuma was already running the moment he heard one of his old aides calling him Lord. Hearing that his daughter was in danger sent him into overdrive. He headed straight for the ship's loudspeaker, a recent addition Tom had finished adding in the month they had been there, and activated it. "Garp, get your asses to the ship now." Kuma yelled out, not caring if he scared anyone or disrupted anything. He flew about the ship preparing for it to leave, and he could distantly hear multiple people running up the gangplank. "Kuma, what's happened?" Garp yelled out, the rest of the crew minus Sarah's there with him. None of them had ever heard Kuma raise his voice, so they dropped what they were doing to run back to the ship. "My daughter. The world government, Cypher Pole, the Marines, I don't know who, but they found her." Those words explained everything to Garp. "Get this ship moving now." He ordered the crew and everyone ran off to their stations. Garp ran to the railing to look back to shore where Hancock was standing, having followed after Garp in fear that one of her Kuja had broken their trust. "We'll be back. Something's happened and we need to handle it. Continue your training and let Sarah's know when she gets back." Garp raised his voice louder and louder as the ship sped away, Kazan killing any sea kings that attempted to attack the ship as they disturbed the waters in their rush. "Kuma, get word to the revolutionaries. They can help us." Alvia screamed out as she helped Belmir at the helm. Kuma ran off to the communications room to do just that. "Head for the South Blue." Kuma yelled out as he ran, "The Sorbet Kingdom." The meeting room of the 5 elders. Sengoku walked through a hallway with a newspaper and a file gripped tightly in his hand. Tsuru walked beside him, although she didn't know what he had seen that had sent him storming to see the 5 elders. "Sengoku, I suggest you stop to think over what you're about to do before you enter that room." Tsuru grabbed his arm to stop him, but he dragged her for a bit before he stopped. "I just learned 2 things, one was from the newspaper, which I definitely shouldn't have learned about it from Morgan's of all people, the other was hidden from me and sent over my head. And I just got new orders myself that I need to talk with them about." Sengoku barely explained anything and continued walking. Tsuru let go of his arm. "Just try and keep a cool head, we don't want them to execute you." Sengoku responded to Tsuru's warning by kicking the doors to the 5 elders' meeting room open. "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" Sengoku screamed at them. Saturn opened his mouth, but Sengoku didn't give him the chance. "You gave orders to Kong behind my back without even giving me the barest of warnings of what you were about to have him do." Sengoku opened the file. "You ordered him, and I quote, kill all rebels within the South and North Blues," unquote. Sengoku dropped the file and then threw the newspaper onto the table. "I learned about the real story from fucking Morgan's, who even sent one of his reporters undercover here apparently to find the records on these events, which just so happened to include these secret orders. He just dropped this story today, and already I'm getting calls and letters of resignation from hundreds of thousands of Marines. Meanwhile, I learned that the rebels, not pirates as I was led to believe, were fighting against fucking corrupt Marines." Tsuru stepped back as golden energy swirled around Sengoku. "You blocked any attempts they made to contact Marine HQ to try and get help with the corruption. They were fully willing to lay down their arms so long as they got help. Their leader wasn't even fucking 17. Meanwhile, in the North Blue, the person I was led to believe to be leading a band of pirates trying to control the trade routes was in fact someone trying to defend the trade routes from pirates who was working with a bunch of people who felt the same, not a bunch of cutthroat murderers. That was someone we should have been allying with, not fighting against. Do you have any clue what you've done with this?" Sengoku panted as he glared them all down. Once it was clear he was done, Saint Saturn spoke up. "It was necessary to keep the balance. If the kingdom stopped relying upon the Marines to defend them, the balance of the world would be split into hundreds of pieces. They already don't rely on the Marines because of the Sabaody incident. And with your recent decision to restrict Admiral Hina and take her away from defending and securing trade routes, even more have stopped relying on Marines. Morgan's fucking interviewed people, and the entirety of the South and North Blue citizens have given up on the world government and the Marines. But it could have been far worse, St. Mars told Sengoku. They fear what we will do to them if they step out of line again. Tsuru couldn't keep silent any longer. Fear will only last so long, especially with Garp and the Revolutionary Army out there still. Whatever peace you think you've managed to create with this decision won't last even a year. All you've ended up doing is destroying most of the trust the people had in the fleet admiral position. We have already set in motion a plan to take care of Garp and his crew as well as a key figure within the Revolutionary Army, St. Warkuri said ominously. And that brings me to the next point, Sengoku grumbled. You are sending me and Tsuru to aid Marines and Cypher Pole agents in capturing the daughter of Bartholomew Kuma, Jewelry Bani, to draw out Garp and his crew. But it seems like once again in your panic to fix any issue in this crisis you haven't thought it through. The golden energy continued to radiate around him as his anger grew. Garp has repeatedly shown that he hates the policy of killing children of wanted criminals just because of their relation to said criminals. What's more, there is a high likelihood that Jewelry Bani was adopted by Bartholomew Kuma, meaning she doesn't share any blood relation with him. There's also the fact he kept his work as a revolutionary entirely separate from his work as king of the Sorbet Kingdom. He also completely separated himself from the kingdom before he joined Garp's crew. He never once used his position as a king to help the Revolutionary Army or the Starry crew. Meaning he's in very good standing with his people and other royals. What you have just set in motion will destroy the little remaining goodwill people from the South Blue had with us. Saint Nushjiro stood up from where he was sitting. You will do your duty, Sengoku. You will aid in the capture of Jewelry Bani, and if the Starry crew comes you will kill Monkey D. Garp. Do you understand? Sengoku grits his teeth. Oh, I understand. Do you? Sengoku turned around and stomped out of the room with Tsuru closing the doors behind them. What's the plan? Tsuru asked, wanting to know what they were going to do. We don't have a choice but to follow their orders, and unfortunately for me, they will be able to tell if I hold back and will arrest me if I do. Once you get Kajaku out, we're retiring. Sengoku stormed to the ports of Marineford, a ship already waiting to take him to the Sorbet Kingdom, ordered by the 5 elders. Death walked through an ornate set of doors into the meeting hall of the 5 elders. Sengoku and Tsuru were long on their way to the South Blue, but the elders were still in the room and time wasn't frozen. Who are you? Saint Warkuri demanded to know, his mood foul after what Sengoku said to them. Death smiled wide. She wasn't nervous to be there. She acted as though it were her home that she was returning to after a long day, just someone waiting for you old fucks to die. She smiled wide as they sputtered. How dare you? Saint Nushjiro jumped to his feet and put his hand to the hilt of his sword. But Death only laughed at the threat. Oh, don't worry, I'm not here for you idiots, I'm here to see Imu. They paled as she mentioned the name of the secret ruler of the world. It's been a while since I last talked with them, about 800 years give or take. Death shrugged casually and walked past Saint Nushjiro and claimed his seat as her own. She took his cup of tea and loudly slurped it down, holding eye contact with all of them. I figured with everything going on now would be a wonderful time to catch up, you know? So why don't you go tell them Death is waiting to speak? Suddenly the cross earring disappeared from her ear and in her hand she held a trident twice her size. She stabbed it into the ground where it crackled with electricity as the floor cracked all throughout the room. Or would you prefer I go ask others? I'm sure they'd love to learn about Imu and everything. She chuckled as Saint Nushjiro ran out of the room. Why you called yourself Death, B, but who are you really? Saint Jupiter asked, managing to keep most of his fear contained. It is as I said, I am Death, the Grim Reaper, Collector of Souls, Ferryman of the Dead, Punisher of the Sinful. Look, the titles go on and on, okay? I am who I say I am, nothing more, nothing less. Death lifted one finger and raised the teapot into the air with nothing holding it. With a few quick twitches of her finger, it poured her another cup before it came to rest once more on the table. The fact that none of the furniture within the room had moved yet the cracks within the floor were real scared the elders more. The level of control she had in the situation reminded them far too much of Imu. It will be some time before Nushjiro returns. Is there anything you want? St. Mars asked, working to keep things from escalating. You want to know where I got this thing? Death pointed at the trident, completely ignoring the question. I made it from the sacred weapons of 2 gods that I killed. She took a sip from her tea. It was the war of the divine, all sorts of things were going on and a lot of gods died. You know, we actually based a lot of devil fruits off of them. Death let out another chuckle. You know, making those things was a lot of fun. And we keep finding new ideas to make new devil fruits, from the dreams of people to creatures of history, to the monsters of myths and legends. There is no shortage of things we can take inspiration from in this world. Death waved her hand. Anyway, back to the trident. I killed Zeus and took his master bolt. The elders tensed at the name. They remembered it was the name of the cloud Big Mom always had by her side. And I fused it with the trident after I pried it from Poseidon's cold dead hands. Death laughed uproariously while the elders paled at the name of the second god. It took me days to complete it, but the looks on the other gods' faces when they saw me using it was worth it. Death continued to laugh at the memories for a few minutes before she quieted down. You know what the most annoying part of becoming the only god of death was? I had to fuse all of the afterlives into one. I earned some of them by killing the gods who watched over them. Others I earned by killing the gods who killed the former rulers. Some of those rulers were my friends. So it was pretty, what's the word? Cathartic? Pleasureful? No, that just sounds wrong. Anyway, I killed a whole lot of gods, not all of them gods of death obviously. And I and the others remain, the only ones who remember the other gods who once walked this world. Could they come back someday? Who knows? Anything is possible when you learn the gods who create the logic you cling to actually exist. Death smiled unnaturally wide, revealing fangs and something glowing behind them. So how long is it going to take for Nushjaro to get back here? I'm not known for my patience with people like you. At that moment Saint Nushjaro ran back into the room. Emu will see you, the old man panted as he told her, having run to the empty throne and back as quickly as he could. Wonderful. Death jumped to her feet and walked right past Saint Nushjaro. I know where to go, so don't worry. The 5 elders gaped at her as she walked off. If she knew where the empty throne was, why didn't she just go there? Death walked along the hallway, passing by many people, most of whom she gave her middle finger. Literally, she ripped off her middle finger and threw it at them before then growing it back and repeating the process. She did, however, give Njasgard a normal thumbs up. Once she was at the doors to the empty throne, she kicked them open and walked in, kicking the doors closed as she did so. It's been quite some time since we last met, Death. Although this is the first time you didn't stop time, Emu spoke to her from the throne. Why did you reveal yourself to the 5 elders? Death shrugged. Meh, they only got a few years left. What are they gonna do? Betray me and start an authoritarian government? She glared at Emu fiercely, but she couldn't help the smirk that grew on her face. As the god of death, she possessed a skill unique only to herself, the ability to see how much time a living being not of the divine realm had before they died. She called them the clocks of life. It's been a while since I last saw your clock. Emu jerked back at those words. They had managed to gain so much power back then that Death had admitted she couldn't see their clock of life anymore, so to hear that she could now see it again was terrifying even to Emu. I am still a champion of an embodiment of a wish, one you sponsored yourself by your laws. Death interrupted Emu. You still don't understand our laws, do you? They are only upheld so long as mutual trust is upheld between both parties. Enslaving the embodiment of a wish that aided you in your journey, who was your friend? Or going so far off track of what you were tasked with doing by the embodiment that the world is in a far worse state than what you were tasked with preventing? What about all the people and kingdoms you destroyed or enslaved? The whites of Death's eyes turned pitch black as her skin began to sink. Her height grew until she was taller than Emu as her flesh melted away and her suit transformed into a billowing robe. There are plenty more reasons why you betrayed our trust, Emu. Do not claim to be the champion of wish that you enslaved. Do not claim to still be protected from us by our own laws. All that you think you learned about the realm of the divine is 900 years old. We learned from our mistake of choosing you and have changed our laws 850 years ago. Her purple eyes glowed menacingly within the sockets of her skull. Your knowledge of us is worthless. Emu gripped the armrests of the empty throne tight enough that they began to crack. They had only seen Death like this once before when his betrayal had been revealed to the gods, and even back then Death had put them into such a state of fear they couldn't move at all. You may have found a new champion, one who managed to convince that idiot monkey Garp to abandon the Marines, but I will easily find them when you stop time. You will have to at some point. Emu tried to regain their confidence, but their shaking hands revealed the fear they felt. Death reverted back to her human form. We've stopped time at least 3 times before this meeting when talking with our new champion. Emu's eye widened. Plus, the embodiment of a wish traveled back in time as well, just like the enslaved wish. What? Impossible. I would have known. Emu stood up but was immediately pushed back down by Death. Death stood on Emu's chest as she stalked forward, the very shadows twisting around her. You think we wouldn't find a way to hide it from the wish you enslaved? When we found out what she was doing for you, we began doing tests. Death let out a victorious laugh. We hid it from you. You can't use the process of elimination because the enslaved wish will be frozen in time too. You won't be able to find our champion so easily when you can't question her about what happened in the old timeline. Death gripped her stomach as she bent her back unnaturally as she filled the throne room with her laughs. Then why come here? Why meet with me? Emu yelled at Death, not understanding why she was telling them this. Death lifted into the air on black wings made of smoke. I just wanted to tell you that the tunnel of sand you managed to keep stable the last 900 years is finally collapsing. Oh, and Lily would have been a better choice. She gave Emu a cheeky smirk and they let out a yell of anger and tried to punch her, but she was already gone. Realm of the Divine. Death stood within her home in the realm of the divine with her hand outstretched. Quickly her trident flew into her hand, no doubt leaving several holes as it returned to her, and turned it back into an earring hanging from her ear. Her home was completely bare, with nothing decorating it or even furniture. Death had once had things hanging on the walls given the hooks that were still there, but she had taken them down long ago. Well, that went way better than expected. Brushing off some of the dust she had gotten on her suit after teleporting into her home, she walked out and ran into Shaper waiting for her outside. So how did it go? Unlike when he spoke with Garp, there wasn't any mirth in his voice or eyes. The topic of Emu got the gods involved in that disaster in a foul mood. Emu doesn't think Garp is the champion. In fact, they think Garp was set off by our chosen champion. They also called him an idiot. Death told him as they walked away from her home and to the meeting hall. And Emu knows that the enslaved wish can no longer tell them when we stop time or that we even reverse time. Shaper sighed in relief. Good, and so long as the embodiment of Luffy's wish doesn't stay in the mortal realm for long periods of time, Emu can't capture them. Shaper's body suddenly began to change. It slimmed down and began to appear more feminine. How did the news affect Emu's clock of life? Shaker asked as she shook her shoulders. We will never get used to that. Fuck, do I wish I could kill Emu myself. When Emu had betrayed the gods, they tried to place a curse on Death that would have given her immortality a weakness. However, Shaper and Shaker jumped in front of her before the curse could hit and ended up fused into one body, shifting between each other based on who wanted to talk. We should have a better idea on how to break it once Garp gets to Noah, maybe even break it right away. I still haven't figured out who put that barrier over the boat, but we saw it broken in the old timeline. I'm sure it can be done again. Death had always felt guilty for what happened to Shaper and Shaker. The curse was meant for her, but instead it hurt them. As for Emu's clock of life, once they heard the news, a few years was shaved off of it. A couple months were also taken off it when I told them Lily would have been better. Shaker let out a booming laugh as her body switched between herself and her brother, both laughing at Emu's coming demise. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Support the writer. Don't forget to like, sub, share, and donate for more videos.